Welcome to the Rainbow Studio here as part of the YAHOWAH blog. I'm your host, Craig Winn, with my assistant host, Wookie, over here, that is trying to garner my undivided attention. I'll try to see if I can multitask it at this point. The show yesterday from this studio was riveting. We considered what Yahweh revealed regarding the Messiah, and the 89th Psalm, which is officially a Mizmowr, lyrics to be sung, where he said that the world, Jews in particular, Israelites, but everyone, this was a universal condemnation. And what God said is that you have denounced, you have demeaned, you have rejected your Messiah, and you have meddled where you did not belong. And in so saying that, when the entire Mizmowr is dedicated to a singular individual, the very Son of God, the former and returning king, Dowd, David, who Yahweh expressly said was the Messiah, naming him. Therefore, in one verse of one psalm, God completely denounced and obliterated the religions of Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. And so, since all three religions claim that these psalms were ordained by their God, they're gone. It's over. God renounced them for misrepresenting the Messiah. And he stated that the Messiah is Dowd David. Therefore, there is no room for a religion that was founded by Akiba on the false claim of a Messiah named Bar Kokhba, from which you get your six-pointed star, Israel. There is no validity in a religion that counterfeited Dowd. Don't you fall off there, young man. That counterfeited the actual Messiah, that was born out of a crime of identity theft. Christianity, it's over. There was no Jesus. It's nothing but a lie. There's no Christ. It's no such thing as a Christian. According to God, it is an absolute lie. And of course, Islam mentions of anyone that is in the Torah, prophets, and Psalms, including Dowd, is based entirely on the rubbish that rabbis promoted through the Babylonian Talmud and then recited to Muhammad for a buck. And he then twisted and claimed it came from Allah. Three religions gone in a heartbeat. But it also was detrimental to, devastating to, the insider cult that we have more problems with than we do with Christians or Jews or Muslims. I mean, here I've written 5 volumes denouncing Islam and have had thousands of death threats from Muslims. I've written 5 volumes denouncing Christianity and should have every manner of Christian at my neck. And here we've written numerous books denouncing everything claimed by the rabbis, and the most injurious and inaccurate claims come from the mother goddesses. They are by far the most vile, repulsive. And their whole claim is that the Passover lamb cannot have been a person because God opposes human sacrifice. They are that utterly stupid. So they have meddled where they do not belong. They have caused a huge degradation of what the Messiah and Son of God is all about. And as a matter of fact, there isn't one of them, not one, that would know that Dowd is the Messiah, that Dowd is the Son of God, that Dowd is the former and returning king. Not one of them. They all learned that by reading my books and listening to my shows. And now they want to denounce the fact that I have concluded and proven that this ode to Dowd in the 89th Psalm is written largely because of what Dowd did in becoming our Savior, fulfilling Pesach as the Lamb, Matzah with his soul carrying our guilt into Sheol to perfect us, and Bekurim as the Bekor, firstborn son of God. They have no interest in promoting Dowd. Their only interest is in renouncing me. And you were just destroyed. But God wasn't done. He's very thorough on these things. He says that not only have you degraded and denounced and demeaned, meddling where you did not belong, the Messiah, Dowd, you have repudiated and renounced the covenant with your co-worker.
Oops. Morons.
You know, there are a number of individuals that could be considered in this particular role as co-worker. Foremost among them, of course, is Dowd. But by meddling where they did not belong, by repudiating the very testimony of God to advance their mother goddess cult or the religion of Christianity or the religion of Judaism or the religion of Islam, they have repudiated and renounced the covenant. They have disavowed. They have shown no respect for, and they are prohibited from being part of the covenant. So this co-worker would primarily be the Messiah, Dowd, because he is the one whom in this very psalm, it said made the covenant possible. God is saying that it was Dowd who enabled the covenant, that he enabled it through Dowd, and that Dowd is the living embodiment of it. And so by renouncing Dowd, by depriving Dowd of what he has accomplished, you've repudiated the covenant. There is no covenant without Dowd. You know, you can say, no, Yahweh made the covenant with Abraham. No, he didn't. No, he didn't. He didn't make it with Adam. He didn't make it with Noah. He did not make it with Abraham. He did not make it with Yishak or with Jacob. Yahweh enabled the covenant, actually bringing it into fruition through the sacrifice of Dowd. End of story. There is no covenant without him. What God did with Noah is he revealed a vessel that was symbolic of the covenant, and salvation by listening to what Yahweh said and acting upon it, that was indicative of how we participate in the covenant, and the rainbow that became the sign of the covenant. But he didn't enable the covenant. When he met with Abraham on his way out of Babylon and delineated the conditions of the covenant wasn't established. It was, the narrative regarding it was conveyed. And prior to the work that I did in translating Bereshith and thereby thinking it through and said, all right, based upon these 7 meetings and all of the dialogue that took place between the two of these men, particularly based upon what Yahweh said, these are the conditions for participation. This is what Abraham had to agree to. And this was what was being offered. But what God was offering could not be delivered until Pesach, Matzah, and Bekurim were fulfilled. So, if you repudiate anything Dowd has done, including serving as the Passover lamb, including carrying our guilt into Sheol to deposit it there so that it is never seen again, which once again, no one on earth would have known prior to the time that I revealed that he did that. I mean, there's 2 things. Serving as the Passover lamb in 33 CE, which I not only revealed but proved. even showing how Dowd figured out he should volunteer and showing why Dowd decided it was the right call for him and for his people, and then showing why God accepted his son's decision in this regard, even demonstrating the exact date that he foretold he would fulfill Pesach, Matzah, and Bakorim, as well as being the first to correctly translate the 22nd and 88th Mizmowr Psalms, which explain how Dowd, as the only eyewitness, wrote in first person exactly how he would fulfill Pesach, Matzah, and Bakorim, as well as being the first to correctly explain Yeshaya 53, because we're told explicitly it's only the individual who comes to know the identity of the Zeroah that will reveal its true meaning. So in addition to repudiating the covenant with your co-worker being Dowd, it's also to repudiate the covenant with the co-worker named Yada. Because without Yada, none of this is known. Sure, Yahweh revealed it all. And we've gone between 2,000, 2,500, and 3,000 years without anyone understanding it, without anyone knowing the terms and conditions of the covenant, without knowing how it was narrated to Abraham and then enabled through Dowd. So, when I say that there is a 0% chance that any Christian is in heaven, that any Muslim will ever enter heaven, that any practitioner or advocate of Judaism will ever enter heaven, or that there is any chance that any of the mother goddesses will ever see heaven. I know what I'm talking about. They have repudiated the covenant. They have renounced it. They have disavowed the covenant with your co-worker, the one doing the work as the official advisor. It is based on Abad to work. What was the name of that fellow from Edom that brought the Ark of the Covenant to the Temple Mount so that it was available for Dowd, who will bring it again? What was his name? Something. Obed. What is the difference in the way Obed Edom and Abad to work are spelled in Hebrew?
I think they're spelled the same.
They are spelled the same. So would Obed Edom, by the name that Yahweh has described, be the co-worker in addition to Dowd? Is it possible that these two fellows have collaborated?
That makes logical sense.
Isn't the son, the greater luminary, the one who fulfilled Pesach, Matzah, and Bakorim, and the lesser luminary, the one who reflected what the son has achieved?
Yep.
You have dishonored and you have defiled his dedication to the land, to the material realm, to the earth. Mizmowr lyrics to be sung, 8939. And what is I mean, you see them when the mother goddess cult is out promoting. How do they promote? Do they promote, boy, we have this wonderful new insight, and this is what Spirit Mom says, because there's nothing Spirit Mom ever said? Or do they spend all of their time dishonoring, defiling, and treating me with contempt and desecrating the place where Yahweh's name was reintroduced and dwells at this moment, which is Yada Yahowah?
Libel and slander is all they promote against the Choder.
That is it.
Bad place to be, in my opinion.
Dishonored and defiled. That's all they've got. Why? Because they know what I represent. They know what I've written is true. And they know that based upon it, they have written their own ticket to Sheol. And they don't like that. So all they've got is to repudiate everything they once held as true so that they can claim, for the moment, that they've not written their own ticket to Sheol, but they have.
Oh yes,
God is
us.
not. God is not pleased about this.
Didn't Amos already should tell us that? what their position is. Can't
Yeah.
be talking about us.
Oh, I recently, because the mother goddess herself was so vile, claiming that she was a victim and that I victimized her, when in fact I was the nicest person ever to her, and gave her bunches of money to try to help her, lots of personal accolades and protection trying to help her. And then she was the one who repaid my kindness with being vile against me. And yet she's the one who wants to pretend that she's the little victim, and that she now wants to protect all the other little victims, none of which I ever even knew, who I only came to be aware of because their first communication with me was to renounce me, even though they had no idea who I was. And I had no interaction with them. But because of this, and the last time that they posted, I think it was a fellow that wanted to die on the hill of modesty.
Yep.
An old guy. What in the world would you live your life and you get to be 80 years old, you're dying of cancer, and you're going to die on the hill of modesty after all of this. And after I've proven that God never has ever asked us to be modest or humble or meek in his presence, that is a Christian concept. He doesn't even have a word for it when it pertains to him. And so when he had his last post, all the little mother goddess devotees said, "Attaway, man, I really feel, I'm proud of you for coming out and saying this." And their excuse for repudiating Yada Yahowah was the claim that I said you could eat whatever you wanted to. That was their claim. So what would I have to do under that basis? I'm reading this. I can't debate with them because Yahweh says, don't ever. You don't ever reach out to them. Don't ever try to resolve their problem. Don't ever call them back home. Don't ever try to embrace them. Do this. Push them away, condemn them, and exterminate everything associated with them. That's God's instruction 100% of the time. But I read this. Am I supposed to just roll over and play dead? Oh boy, you got me. Or am I supposed to provide an answer, since they're posting it in a public forum to slander me and denounce Yada Yahowah? So I have to deal with it. Yeah. Not for them, but for those who might be deceived by them. So if you're going to do that, you're going to go to the place where Yahweh, through Moshe, said you can eat whatever you want, correct?
Yeah.
And do you know where that place is?
Dabarim?
Dabarim 12. Dabarim 12. And so I went to Dabarim 12 because I figured, well, I haven't retranslated that in a month of Shabbats. So I went back to it and said, I have never cheated on Yahweh before, so I'm not going to do it this time. I'm not going to go to the verses that say you can eat whatever you want. I'm going to start at the beginning. So I go to where I had made a translation of Dabarim 12, and it's introduced by a statement found in Yosha. Joshua is what the English title would be. Yosha, it means Yahweh saves. Where God says to Yosha, I will never withdraw from you. I will always support you. And in this regard, the way to bring the children of Israel into the promised land is for you to be Shazak. If you're Shazak, they will inherit the land. Does Shazak suggest humble?
No.
Meek?
No, not even
wimpy?
Close. No.
No, in fact, it is so firm, it's harsh. It's bold, powerful, stand up against all odds, combative, battle through it all, total conviction, uncompromising, unrelenting. It is the antithesis of meek, humble, or modest. And all that's at stake is the fellow that Yahweh said, I'm going to support if he responds this way in bringing my people into the land so they can inherit it. So, if your job is to bring people back into the land, are you supposed to be meek and humble?
Not going to be effective.
No. Absolutely, unequivocally not. And so to find that as the first citation in this presentation, you're going, okay, I remember that from a while ago. Shazak is a really powerful term, one of my favorites. It appears everywhere as it relates to God's approach to drawing his people out of bad situations and bringing them home. God says himself that he is Shazak when it comes to bringing his people home. And so if God is Shazak and he told Yosha ben Nun that the only way we're going to make this happen is for you to be Shazak, wouldn't it make sense that we should be bold?
Absolutely.
So why did a fellow named Roger decide he would denounce me and call me a liar and attack me viciously based upon the myth that we're supposed to be humble?
Because religion's a hell of a drug.
And he was embraced by the mother goddesses.
Yep.
And what they said was, well, yeah, we agree with you because he said you can eat anything you want. No, I didn't. Yahweh did. You got a problem with Yahweh? Take it up with him. He's not going to listen to you because he can't stand you. But there we go. And here I am now translating everything that leads to Yahweh's statement that you can eat anything you want. And he went on, and then he doubled down on it, then he tripled down on it, then he quadrupled down on it. Just in case you had any doubt, 1, 2, 3, 4, eat anything you want. Clean, unclean, it does not matter. My blessing. How does it begin? The 12th chapter of Dabarim. Do you know? It begins by renouncing mother goddesses. That's how it begins. It says, denounce them, trash them, don't associate with them, exile them, exterminate them. Don't even leave any trace of their names. And don't you even think for a moment of joining them or being part of them or doing anything in association with them. Okay, Yahweh. Thank you very much. All right, so you have dishonored and you have defiled his dedication to the land, to the earth. Mizmowr lyrics to be sung. You know, Christians don't give a rat's patootie about Israel or Jerusalem.
No.
Muslims only want it as a place to say, we conquered. This is our trophy. Jews actually don't venerate it either. The highest concentration of Jews is in New York City.
Yeah.
And you look at the parasitical Jews, and not one of them will stand up and battle on behalf of Israel. They're just parasites. And they actually renounce Zionism. And Yahweh was a Zionist. And so there aren't very many people that have a genuine dedication to the land. We can go back to our mother goddesses since they are the most annoying currently. That's the big thing about them. They don't give a hoot about Israel. All they care about is themselves. Shabuah, that's our harvest. Why? Because it doesn't pertain to those dastardly Jews, because they've got Towrah. We don't want anything to do with Towrah. Shabuah is our harvest. Oh, no, it's not. Shabuah happens to be a Bakutim harvest of standing and upright grain, and it is directly associated with one's involvement and support of
Israel.
Huh.
Jews.
Funny how that works.
Yeah.
So for a dedication to the land, the two witnesses are going to come back to the heart of the land, city of Dowd, to the Temple Mount, and they're going to show their concern over what's being done to it, defending it. Dowd established the city of Dowd. He established the Temple Mount. He established Jerusalem. He defended God's people and their presence in the land. So, while this is primarily, again, directed to Dowd, it's not the only person that God has worked through in this regard. But the bottom line here is when Dowd is renounced, so are the Moedim he fulfilled. And the covenant he enabled. When Dowd is dishonored, the land to which he was devoted suffers. Yahowah's point, and as God, he can be trusted in this regard. There is an inseparable connection between snubbing and passing over the Messiah, David, and desecrating the covenant. Because the result is to dishonor his dedication to his people and this planet so that they can be part of the covenant. This is only said with regard to Dowd because he is the one through whom Yahowah engaged to reconcile his relationship with his wayward children, and then to make people aware of it through the lesser luminary, his herald. Reject Dowd, denounce his herald at your peril. Accept him, listen to his herald for your benefit. What I don't understand, and I don't think Yahowah does either, is with the conditions of his covenant so liberating and uplifting, so beneficial, and the value of the covenant so enriching and empowering, and with him proving that his promises are reliable, why disavow and replace what God is offering through his chosen Messiah with a replacement Messiah, not one, but three? Why do that? Why have a Jesus? Why have a Bar Kokhba? Why have a Muhammad? When Yahowah's message is so clear and what he's offering is so magnificent, why spit in God's face? With Dowd so generous, why recant what he accomplished and reject what he is offering? But to practice Judaism, to believe Akiba, who caused the diaspora, who caused Israel to be devastated because of his false Messiah, who lied to you, whose 35,000 acolytes all died. You want to make that the father of your religion? You really are stupid. Now, for those who may be protesting, saying that they haven't repudiated Dowd because they honored David by wrapping themselves in a flag emblazoned with his six-pointed star. May I challenge said assumption by categorically stating that there never was a Star of David, and David isn't even his name? Creating a false caricature of a man in this manner degrades his authentic nature. He is not one of many stars, nor part of a religious zodiac. Not only would Dowd's number be 3, representing his 3 lives, or 7, demonstrating the synergy of man with God, the 6-pointed star of intersecting triangles is entirely pagan. It is a religious icon. It predates even Dowd as the Messiah in Goyim religious cultures. It was chosen by rabbis in Europe in the 15th century. It has no affiliation with the Torah, the prophets, with Yahowah, or Dowd. It's nothing but a religious idol. Further, since this sign was forced upon Jews by the Roman Church and later by the Nazi Germans to denigrate and to demonize Jews, why would any sane people pick the symbol that was used to denigrate them and to demonize them and to exterminate them as their symbol? How could you be that repulsive? That's self-deprecating. Listen, the whole world is trying to demonize you. And you're going to go along with the plot by denigrating yourselves? You want to play all pious and write G-D or say Hashem, and yet you got a religious icon. What in the hell is wrong with you? One last thought before we move on. The juxtaposition of the preceding two statements not only serves to reinforce that Dowd has been rejected and denied by Yehudim and by Goyim, but that Yahweh is enormously displeased that his sons' lives and lyrics have been disavowed. There is nothing that the Jewish people could have done to aggravate God more than start a religion based upon Rabbi Akiva's promotion of a false Messiah, Bar Kokhba. And look at the consequence. There is nothing that God could have been more disgusted by than another rabbi's and Jews' creation of the myth of Jesus by counterfeiting his son, God's son, the actual Messiah, to create the lie of Christianity. These are the true greatest crimes in human history. You can't actually put Islam in that same boat because everything Muhammad had to say about anything that God had revealed was corrupted twice over. First by the rabbis who wrote trash in their Talmud and then sold that trash to Muhammad. And then Muhammad, as he perverted and twisted what they told him to serve his particular interest, and then claimed that it came from Allah. So it's the rabbis thrice over committing the worst crime that has ever been perpetrated, creating the Abrahamic religions. You deserve the fate of the Abraham Accords, Israel. They will destroy you. You did this to yourself. Dowd is the exemplar of the covenant. He is the enabler of the covenant, according to Yahowah, who I think ought to know. God's family is severely curtailed. In fact, it doesn't exist without the Messiah's contributions to it. And this serves to affirm the Zeroah's, the sacrificial lamb's fulfillment of the first three mikre, which provide the benefits of the bereth. Now, a little explanation here might be helpful as we consider this next statement. The sheepfold whose walls have been torn down represent the barriers around the covenant, which were designed to keep the religious riffraff out, the political and the conspiratorial, as well as the belligerent and the ignorant. Those are the walls around the covenant. You see, God's not trying to save everybody. He is not trying to make it easy to be part of his family. He's trying to preclude the overwhelming preponderance of people of even giving a sniff of it. He doesn't want to save everyone. He wants to save so damn few, he actually refers to it as thousands amongst billions, which is 1 in a million. And yet, we find so many tearing those walls down that were designed to keep the riffraff out. And as much as my job is to share with you the conditions and the benefits of the covenant and how they're achieved through the Moed Mikre and how they were delivered by Dowd, it is also my job to be exceedingly harsh, Shazak, on those who want to twist any of them for their personal benefit and to tear down those walls which must be established to keep the conspiratorial and the religious out. God reveals, you have broken down and you have destroyed. You have parats, breached in hostility, shattering, negatively impacting with your opposition to his entire sheepfold and all of its walls, Kol Gadara, the entirety of his protective enclosure and its hedges from Gadar, the fences that have been put around the way he constructed it. You have caused the undoing and the degradation and destruction of his fortifications. Mizmowr, Psalm 89:40. I know that most people can't process this because you've been hoodwinked by religion to say, God loves all the little children. He's calling all the little children to him. God is love. God is merciful. Just believe and you go to heaven. Bull. God is not forgiving. God is not all loving. And he doesn't want even a tiny minority to be part of his covenant family. He wants to be restrictive. Walls, fortifications, fences are all around the covenant. My job is to explain the doorway in and then to stand there as a guard so that those who do not belong don't get in. That is the job. And everyone wants to tear it down. Everybody wants to claim that their way is the right way and nobody can tell them where their soul is going. Oh, yeah, we can. Because Yahweh did. You tear down the fortifications around this covenant. You chip away at what Dowd accomplished. You negate in any way any one of the terms or conditions of the covenant, which nobody, by the way, would have known until Yada Yahowah, or how those are fulfilled through the Moed Mikra, which no one would have known until Yada Yahowah. So by renouncing Yada Yahowah, what are you doing?
Tearing down walls.
Tearing them down.
I wouldn't want to be in that position.
Oh my God. It's the only place in 2,500 years that has actually explained the terms and conditions of the covenant, the benefits of the covenant, and how they're delivered through the Moed Mikra, and who performed to enable that result. Only one person, 25,000 pages of evidence. And yet there are those who are Christians, who are rabbinical Jews and mother goddesses, as well as Muslims, who would negate, destroy, slander everything that is contained in those books for their own personal whatever. You're repulsive. You're not getting in. Complain all you want. Try to have misery love company. So you preclude even more people from coming in, and they'll spend all eternity with you in Sheol, and then you get to deal with the fact that they're in Sheol because you misled them. Serves you right. God is in defenses. We're going back to the Gan Eden, are we not?
The protective enclosure God created?
Gan. Gan is based upon a protective enclosure, isn't it?
Yep.
Did the Gan have walls?
Absolutely.
So, to be part of God's family, there are walls keeping the riffraff out, aren't there?
Yep.
Absolutely. That's the way it was. That's the way it's going to be, because sukkah is from a root of sukkak, which means exactly the same thing. Protective enclosure, walled in. The walls are to keep those who do not belong out. You chip away at those walls for your own personal agenda, whatever it may be. Whether you're a Christian and you want Jesus to save you, as you could be stupid enough to believe that God is a man and that men can kill God, and that resurrection is anything other than pagan mythology, or that you think you can rob God's beloved son, the Messiah, Dowd, and attribute it to a myth and worship the myth, and that's somehow going to work for you? Or that you can be rabbis and you don't even acknowledge that Dowd is the son of God, or that he is the Messiah, or that he is the former and returning king, or that he fulfilled Pesach, Matzah, and Bikurim, and you don't even know what they represent? You think that's going to work out for you? Erasing Yahweh's name, changing Dowd's name, misrepresenting all of the Mikra, totally misrepresenting the Bereth. How's that going to work out for you? Or you're a mother goddess and you want to repudiate the only source of information that has explained any of this, reopening the door, but with a man holding a rod standing outside. As a rebuke to every religion, Yahweh has deliberately restricted access to his covenant, effectively keeping the religious, political, and conspiratorial out. Whether ignorant of or adverse to the 5 beneficial conditions God established for entry, men like Akiba and Paul have sought to annul the Almighty's intent while projecting their own rules. Now, this has been, with the Mother Goddess cult, their primary argument, that even by renouncing me as God's chosen implement in this case, by renouncing the 35 books of Yada Yahowah, which taught them and has introduced everybody who now knows Yahweh to God, by renouncing what Dowd accomplished, that they still get to be covenant, that they still get into Shemaim. But you can't break all of God's rules and have that happen. You can't demean God and say that there is a mommy goddess and that you speak for Spirit Mom and get in. You're making up your own rules and they won't work. Now, if I may share an insight worth considering, the Garden of Eden had walls, just as Rich has advised. They were not there to keep Adam and Chawah locked inside as if they were prisoners, but instead to keep the rest of humankind out because they were religious and they were vicious and they did not belong. The Gan protective garden enclosure of Eden of great joy was, as the name implies, fun because the curmudgeons were excluded. Those who would slander the one who reintroduced God's name and denounce the book that bears his name are not allowed because they're jerks, because they're embittered and rebellious and repulsive. As with Eden, so will be Shemaim. As was God's relationship with Dowd, so will it be with all of the covenant's children. That is why this Mizmowr psalm is so important. Dowd, whose name has been corrupted to David, there is no V in the original alphabet that was used to write the Torah and prophets. And the Wah is a vowel and it's pronounced as the O sound. It's DWD. And the covenant, the Bereth, continue to be integrated and indistinguishable, with the beloved upholding the family. So from God's perspective, an attack on one is an assault on the other. So we are told, everyone who passes this way plunders him. They pillage and they ransack him. They loot him. Creating a counterfeit of someone is a crime. Identity theft is a crime. What Rabbi Akiba did with Bar Kokhba is a crime against God and all people on earth. What Paul and Peter did with Luke and Mark to create this counterfeit of Jesus Christ by identity theft, by robbing the actual Messiah and Son of God who served as our Savior by being crucified, exactly when, where, how, and why he said he would endure that punishment, is an unforgivable crime. Absolutely, unequivocally blocking all access to heaven and to Yahowah. And for those who promote it, it's assured entry into an eternity in hell. You have been forewarned. Do with that information as you will. All who pass this way plunder him. He has become scorned and abusively ridiculed, defiled and unbraided, as has his Bashar herald, as has the lesser luminary of the greater luminary, as has God's more recent Ebed co-worker, by those who claim some affinity with him. Wow. Yeah, Christians, they like the little boy that tossed the stone. They just love the house of Dowd, which doesn't even have 0.1% right on the video. They love his title, his distinction as the Son of God. They just don't want to attribute anything to him. They love robbing him. So they have an affinity with him. The crook has an affinity with the source of the crook's stolen goods, don't they?
It gives them this veil of credibility.
And of course, Jews say they have a Star of David. So they claim to have an affinity with him while they absolutely denounce and degrade him. People who should know better. They carry around in their Bibles, which means from Babylon, testimony which speaks all about Dowd. From the Torah all the way through the Psalms, the Proverbs, and the prophets. And they claim they have some affiliation with him. And yet all they do is renounce him, rob him. This is the greatest crime ever committed. And God is laying it out here, and no one seems to care, but I care. And I'm going to tell you the truth. What you do with it, again, is up to you, but I want you to know the consequence. Continuing to be a Christian, in light of this, is a death sentence at the very best. And at worst, it's an express ticket into Sheol. Continuing to practice Judaism is a death sentence at best. Your soul will simply cease to exist at the end of your life if you have been misled by it. But if you take the next step and you mislead, as every rabbi does, as anyone who promotes the religion online does, then you and those who join you in the promotion of Judaism have written your ticket to Sheol, hell, which is an eternity in a black hole. Doesn't sound like much fun to me. If you're a Muslim and you have been anything more than just misled, you actually carry out that demonic religion, you're going to Sheol. It's going to be a very crowded place, a very religious place. If you are a MAGA and you promote the Antichrist, Donald Dumpster, who is Satan incarnate, who is demon possessed, you promote him, you're going to hell. These are the facts. Deal with them. Get mad at me. I don't really care. I've given you a warning. That was my job. Now, the pretense of sharing an affinity with David is common. His name appears in the New Testament, in the Talmud, and in the Quran. Similarly, Christians, Jews, and Muslims with wholly contradictory belief systems all claim to be Abrahamic religions, even though they degrade Abraham's legacy. Alleging similar origins, their gods share nothing in common. Christians are particularly guilty, lugging around an Old Testament, as they call it, with its tribute to Dowd, to David, adjacent to their revisionist counterfeit, which plunders his legacy. They claim to admire the boy who slew the giant and who sang the 23rd Psalm, not knowing that it is Yahweh, for whose namesake the song was written, and the Philistine who performed that first prostration on behalf of Islam. The first faceplant, that was Goliath. He set the model that the Philistines, now Palestinians, will follow.
That gives them something to look forward to.
Look, something to understand their history. They want to be Palestinians. The first Palestinian to do the prostration nose plant, that was Goliath. He, by the way, got his head handed to him. Not that he could do much with it at that point. You film-mouthed, uncircumcised Philistine. Then, of course, in that they blame Jews for all of their problems. They deny that he was the Messiah and King, who was the most Yehud of all men. Even in the Quran, there is an entire surah that is devoted to Dowd. The only problem is that this imposter was a Muslim and worshipped Allah. Well, that and scores of stories attributed to him were, I don't know if you want to say inane or insane. I think both fit. So now confronted with the Dead Sea Scrolls and a parchment, memorializing. Sometimes I have the Moses syndrome. It's the only way I really fit into the story is if you don't slur a word from time to time, then you just can't be one of the people chosen to speak for Yahweh because, well, he chose Moshe first in this regard, and Moshe had a thick tongue. So occasionally I do this on purpose, of course, just to fit in with the fellas, or not. Maybe pulling your leg on that one. So now confronted with the reality that we have found the Dead Sea Scrolls and that there is a parchment memorializing this Mizmowr or Psalm 1,000 years before the creation of the Islamic religion. I wonder how a literate Muslim would react after seeing Yahweh's name rather than Allah's. I know the answer, and so do you.
Did you say literate?
Yeah, they wouldn't give a crap because with religion, evidence and reason means nothing to them. That's why they call it faith, not knowing. Many of those who pass this way ransack the covenant, ridiculing everything Dowd represents by taking it from him and giving it to themselves or others. They jeopardize countless lives by flagrantly falsifying the Messiah's identity and contribution to the covenant. And sadly, many of them have settled in proximity to Israel. Today, we know them as the practitioners of Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, with their delusions coming to roost where they clearly do not belong. So, speaking of the religious, whether they be pilgrims or refugees, crusaders or jihadists, God says, you have lifted up and exalted the upper hand of his foes and adversaries, especially of those who try to constrain and limit him. Tsar. You have caused all of those who demonstrate animosity and rancor to him to be delighted. Oh, you don't want God saying that of you. Psalm 89:42. But such is the nature of Judaism, Islam, Christianity, and the mommy goddess cult. They hate it, by the way, when I call them the mommy goddess cult. But you've read, because one of them was actually sent to you, but I have published all of their initial letters, and all say the exact same thing, that they're going off and going to be separate because they have found Spirit Mom. And they think that because I didn't make a big enough deal about the existence of Spirit Mom and what she has to say, that many people are going to die unless they advocate on behalf and speak for Spirit Mom. So, would my calling them the mother goddess cult, which, by the way, Yahweh uses the same term, be accurate under those circumstances?
Absolutely.
So if they don't like it, stuff it. You bought it. You own it. You have lifted up and exalted the upper hand of Dowd's, his foes and adversaries, especially those who try to constrain and limit him. Ooh, that's a really bad thing. Because when you ascribe what Dowd has achieved and his accolades and what he will accomplish going forward to anyone other than him, and when you attack his herald, the lesser luminary reflecting his life, the very man who reintroduced him in the proper role, you are advancing the upper hand of Dowd's foes, his adversaries. Dowd speaks throughout his Psalms, emphatically denouncing those who seek to constrain him. And the only person for the last 2,500 to 3,000 years who has eliminated this, who has completely torn down all of the limitations, torn apart all of the limitations and oppositions that have narrowed the scope of Dowd. This fellow here. Now you might say, well, you're taking credit for too much stuff. It's just the truth. There is no one else ever that has done any of these things. And so you attack Dowd by creating the myth of a Jesus Christ. You attack Dowd by creating the myth of his stupidity, this inane version of him in the Talmud that you sell to Muhammad and becomes part of the Quran. You parade under the banner of a religion that was started by a man who caused your misery through promoting a false Messiah. You denounce what Dowd can achieve because you don't want a person fulfilling Passover. And then you attack the one person who has brought all of this to the forefront. And all you have done is aid and abet Dowd's adversaries at a time of tremendous adversity, Sar. The time of Jacob's troubles, the time of Israel's troubles, it's Sar. The basis of the name Mitzrayim, describing Egypt, it's Sar. God is pulling people out of Sar. And if you want to stay there among those who oppress, who attack, who limit, who subjugate, who demean, you're welcome to do so, but you need to know the consequence. You have caused all of those who demonstrate animosity and rancor to him, Jews, Muslims, Christians, by denouncing him, by counterfeiting him, to be delighted. It played right into the hands of the adversary. You cannot create a mother goddess cult and to attack Yada Yahowah and Dowd's herald, the Choder, without playing into the hands of Satan. It means that at the very core of the mother goddess cult is the adversary himself. Also means that Jesus Christ is Satan. Allah is Satan. Hashem is Satan. None of those three are Yahowah. They bear no resemblance to Yahowah. They bear a complete and total resemblance to Satan. Satan is the god of religion. Yahowah continues to be annoyed by what those who falsely claim to speak for him have done to denigrate his son and diminish all he has accomplished. And in the end, antagonizing God has never worked out well for anyone, nor will it ever. There will never be a conspiracy advocate, a Christian, a Muslim, or a practitioner of Judaism in heaven. Ever. So it is best if those who have been religious stop irritating God before it's too late. And as for Jews, they are guilty of giving the upper hand to Christianity by abandoning the Messiah and Son of God, and then to Islam by selling Muhammad the Talmud recitals he needed to make his Quran appear religious. You did it to yourselves. You created Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, all using replacement theology, or as I like to call it, replacement foolology. For Christianity to differentiate itself from Yahowah and Dowd, from their Torah and their covenant, sufficiently to appeal to religious Greeks and Romans that God warned his people about, they would need a New Testament. And yet, for it to be believable, they would have to borrow heavily from Yahowah's testimony, claiming his prophecies as their own. Therefore, the new religion proposed that it was authorized by the same God and justified by the same prophecies. But how is that possible when one proposition is so contrary to the other? If that were true, why did Paul and Peter and others have to contradict, have to misrepresent every citation that they pulled from the Torah and prophets? Why couldn't they cite any of them accurately? Why was Allah always unable to tell the truth? Why must rabbis continually lie? The answer for Christianity became replacement foolology. This sleight of hand wasn't simply about assigning the blessings and promises offered by God for Jews to the Gentiles who seek their eradication. It's about replacing one covenant with another, but mostly about substituting Jesus for Dowd. Should you not concur, then do what I have done. After scrutinizing Paul's renunciation of Dowd for the sake of his Jesus, go to any Christian site and read their assessment of the prophecies pertaining to David. Go, do it. What you'll find is that Jesus isn't named in a single one of them. But every time Dowd's name appears, Christians insist that it actually applies to Jesus, as if God didn't know the difference between the two names or was unaware of which one he anointed as his Messiah. To be a Christian, your God has to be really stupid. No, your God's no bigger than a man. As it turns out, your God was so inept, men could kill him. How's that working out for you? Oh, you want to pretend like you're a big, tough Christian? Go sick him on me. I beat him with the tip of my finger. Sick Allah on me. See how that worked for you, too. Really. He's not navalent in God's presence. The problem for Christians, of course, was as simple as it was profound. Without the Torah, prophets, and Psalms, they have no God and they have no credibility. But with them, they present a jumble of contradictions. Their only hope was for people to be stupid enough to believe their lies and for the faith to occlude judgment. They banked on the apathy and ignorance and then fear, just as does the mommy goddess cult, just as does Islam, just as does Judaism, which is why rabbis tell Jews not to go on the internet. Fortunately, at long last, there is an open debate once again, even if those who prefer false gods or no gods outnumber those who have come to know the one true God by 1,000,000 to 1. It's not really a debate. It's a renunciation, but nonetheless, considering the score previous to Yada Yahowah, well, that's progress. This will be our last citation for this program. Adding to the resentment. All the more to begrudge. You are turned around again. They're going in the wrong direction. You're shub. You have pivoted such that you are pointed in the opposite direction. Hiffle imperfect, and it's been a long time that you have done this to yourselves. Having assaulted, besieged, bound up, and constrained the rocky crag, having been adverse to the stone of this battle over Choreb, over the fight with sword and chisel, for the fire of Yah and the revelation of his Torah, such that you do not stand with him or support him in this conflict. Mizmowr, lyrics to sing, Psalm 89:43. Just as I had foretold earlier, it's not just Dowd. Yes, Dowd did the heavy lifting. Yes, Dowd is the chosen one. Yes, Dowd is the most intelligent man who ever lived. Yes, Dowd is the most courageous man who ever lived. Yes, Dowd is the ultimate prophet. Dowd is the Son of God. He is our Messiah. He is our former and returning king. Doesn't get any better than Dowd. But you know, just as God chose not to work alone, Dowd doesn't work alone. He was introduced with a lesser luminary reflecting his life. He is forever linked to the functionality of the moon pursuant to the sun. He has a herald, a human agent that conveys his message. And so he has delegated, and because God has created this on his behalf to reintroduce him, to reacquaint people with what he has achieved, by having assaulted, besieged, and tried to constrain the rocky crag of this battle over Choreb, there's a whole lot of people that are in a whole world of hurt. God has tried to get your attention in every possible way, but you may want to look at the first name of the guy who is responsible for those 35 books that bear the title Yada Yahowah. And as a result, you don't stand with me. You don't support me. If you don't stand with me, you do not support me at this time. You do not stand with Dowd. You do not support him. And if you do not stand with Dowd and support him, you do not stand with Yahowah. And you are in conflict with him. Not my rules, God's rules. I thank you for listening.